Hey there everybody, I'm Abby from Abbi Collections, and I just want to let you guys know before we dive into today's tutorial that this is going to be a brand new series that we're introducing to our community. It's going to be called You Design, and it's basically a creative deep dive in the magic of designing your own SVG craft files for yourself with the free program Inkscape. Now, this is a series that is going to assume that you have some basic understanding in the world of design, maybe even some basic understanding in the world of Inkscape. If you're happening across this and you have absolutely zero knowledge and you're wanting to get some foundational skills, we strongly recommend that you visit one of our free workshops below. And if you want to go into a more progressive learning path, then make sure you also check out our program SVG by Design, which will walk you through everything from beginner all the way to intermediate, and advanced. These videos are made for everybody to enjoy, but we have a very special exclusive bonus that is included just for our A-Star Crafter members. With each of these videos that I will be providing with a technique or instruction, you'll also get access to You Design kits. And if you're an A-Star Crafter, you can go over and find today's kit listed in our membership. If you're not yet an A-Star, we really hope to see you there, and there's going to be more information below. We are going to regularly be releasing a new video and a new kit every single month to show you how to use it so you can personalize your own SVG craft files. But for now, let's go ahead and get started with our first You Design lesson. All right, so here's a look at the design we're going to be creating today. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, there is a little You Design fruit kit that is going to be included for all of our A-Star crafters. You can find that information linked below, and you're going to see a cute little peach that's in here, but we have a bunch of other fruits. So if you don't want to use the little punny phrase that I'm including here, you could do something totally different, like I like you very much, or very delicious, or lemon squeezy, something like that. That's one of those common idioms and phrases. Come up with your own, have fun with it. So this is just going to be a fun design that you could put on a tote, you could put on a t-shirt, you could put on a drink, you could do whatever you want with it. You could use these fruit elements in a million different ways. But today we're going to be doing it with a text and graphic combination, and I'm going to be showing you how to do this offset stacking feature here. So let's go ahead and get started. First, if you're following me along, make sure you download that You Design fruit kit, and then you can pull the peach over here. You're going to see in the kit that there are two different versions of this peach, one with one leaf and one with two leaves. So feel free to use one or both like I am here. The real work here is going to be actually doing the design part of our text. If you're wondering how I design the actual elements themselves, again, we have that instruction below. There's more information on our free workshops on how to design completely from scratch. So make sure you check those out. In the meantime, I'm just going to be featuring the kit. So I'm going to start here in Inkscape. I am using Inkscape, as I mentioned earlier. Inkscape is a free software you can download, so it's great to play in for beginners. I have the classic interface set up here, so it's going to have this kind of colorization that you see. Please know that if you download this and it has a different color to the interface, that the tools are all still going to be in the basic same location. They're just going to be different contrast and colors depending on the theme that you set. But for now, let's start over here on the left-hand side. And this left-hand side over here, this is your toolbox. It's got loads of things in here that are going to help you design. The one we're going to focus on here is the text tool. It's currently about midway down in my toolbar. It might be slightly lower or higher depending on how large you set your icons. If you don't see it right away, you can always just press the letter T on your keyboard, and it's going to change that to that particular tool. We can see it's illuminated now over here. And if I click on my screen, a cursor is going to appear. Please note with the cursor, if you don't see it right away, you might be zoomed in really close or really far out. You might also, if the cursor is on the screen, if there is different settings up here where it's like only 1 point font or something super tiny, you might not actually be seeing the cursor blink on the screen. So just check that there's a value up here that is higher than a very low number like a 1 or 2, and where you are as far as zooming, so zooming in and out on the screen. Now, I'm going to go ahead and type something out here. I'm just going to stick with the same words I already used in my example so you can see where we're headed. So we're going to type out just Peachy. Now, in terms of fonts, the font that I am using for this, we're going to open up our font menu here. So up at the top, we have text and font. When we do that, we see here the name of my font is Retro Groovy. I'm going to have a link for this font below for you if you want this exact one, but you could absolutely use any other font you've installed on your computer. And if you've never installed a font on your computer before, there is going to be another tutorial for that linked below for you if you would like step-by-step instructions on that. So for this particular design, I like something that's a little bit fun, a little bit kind of chunky, retro, that groovy style that we're going for here. So maybe pick something similar if you're liking this vibe, or go download this exact font or pick your own. Once you type something out, if you ever need to go back in and edit, you can double click in here and the cursor will reappear and you can backspace and then add your letters and all of that good stuff. So just keep in mind that you can make edits at this stage, but there will be a point where edits are no longer able to be made in terms of the actual font and the letters that you have here, because we will be converting this text into a literal path. When you're working in Inkscape, text is text, and a path, which is made up of points or nodes, that is not the same thing as text. So once it's converted over into that path, you're not going to be able to make these same edits here. It's basically changing its composition and its nature. But this is the phrase I am happy with. I am happy with the capitalization, the letters, the spelling, all good to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to duplicate this, because as you can see with where we're headed here, we're wanting to kind of just create this rhythmic offset here. And in order to do that, we need to duplicate this a bunch of times. So there's multiple ways you can duplicate. One way is to right click and select duplicate. And it's going to create a copy that literally sits on top here. And if you ever need to get back to your primary selector tool, you're just going to hit S on your keyboard or come up here to the top of the toolbox and you can just move this off. But I actually don't want to move this off the top. I just wanted to show you what would happen when you do the duplicate, because it often doesn't look like anything does happen. Okay, so now that that's duplicated, I want to go ahead and I want to open up my fill and stroke panel so I can change the color of one of these so I can see it as I move it around. So I'm going to go up to Object and I'm going to come down here to Fill and Stroke. Your fill should be turned on when you type your text out. If for any reason it's not appearing, that might mean it's either in white or the fill is not turned on. So make sure that you're under the fill tab and that the flat color is turned on. And if you don't see the color wheel, you can just click this little arrow and it'll appear for you. So for example's sake at the moment, I'm just going to change this to a deeper color. And then I'm going to go ahead and nudge this. So nudging can be done with your arrow keys on your keyboard. If you haven't made any changes to your Inkscape settings, it should be nudging it about 1 pixel at a time every time you click the arrow. But if you do need to make adjustments to that, that would be found under your Inkscape preferences. And there's a behavior setting there which will allow you to change how far something is nudged when you click the arrow key. But if you haven't made these changes, then it should be nudging it 1 pixel. So I'm going to click on my left arrow key a couple of times, 1, 2, and then I'm going to click on my up arrow key a couple of times, 1, 2. And we've created this nice offset feature here. You can see how that's looking right there. So now that we've nudged it, the next thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit of an outset to the bottom layer. So we've got our deep red and then we've got our lighter peachy red that's sitting underneath. So if I zoom in real close here and see how we have this layer and then this layer sitting on top, I want the layers beneath it to actually be getting slightly thicker in addition to their offset. So this is called adding an outset in Inkscape. And you're going to find that by going up to Path and then down here to Outset. So it basically adds a bit of an outline and makes it grow. And I prefer to use the keyboard shorthand for this because otherwise you have to literally click each time. You see how that just expanded a little? Let me undo. I'm going to redo it. Watch the lighter layer at the bottom and it expands. Okay, so if you want to expand more seamlessly, use the keyboard shorthand. Otherwise, every time you want to expand, you're going to have to come up here and you're going to have to hit Path, Outset, Path, Outset, Path, Outset. And so it's easier to use the keyboard shorthand, which is Command and then the parentheses, the close parentheses. If you're on a Windows, it's going to be Control instead of Command. So I'm going to hold Command and I've already added one step to this, one outset. I'm going to do it 2 more times. 1, 2. So that's 3 that we've added to that. And you can see that it is significantly thicker. We also know this because if I were to bring this back over and align it, you can now see like this outline going around it here. But I want it to be offset as much as I want that additional outset added around our letters there. We're basically going to repeat this process now. So I'm going to duplicate the one that we just did, that's the bottommost layer here. So select that using your main selector tool. And we're going to duplicate that. And this time I'm going to use the keyboard shorthand for duplicate rather than right clicking. The keyboard shorthand is Command D or Control D if you're on a PC. All right, so our duplicate is sitting on top of everything here. We are going to need to lower that all the way to the bottom in just a moment, but before we do that, let's go ahead and use those arrow keys again. I'm going to move it to the right now, so my right arrow key. I'm going to click it twice to the right, and then I'm going to click it twice to the bottom. And then I'm going to change this color a little bit too. I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter. And then up here along the top, you're going to see these raise and lower selection tools. The icons might look slightly differently, or they might even be a different color, but if you hover over them, you're going to see a terminology that says raise and lower selections. You're going to want the one that says lower selection to the bottom. That's going to send it all the way to the bottommost layer, like that. And then let's go ahead and repeat this. Looking at my original here, I think I did this 2 more times. Now we also want to add our outset as well. So we added outset to this first layer, and we also want to add the outset to this one as well. So I'm going to use the keyboard shorthand for that outset that lives under path and outset. And I'm going to hold Command in my case, and then the parentheses, and I'm going to hit that twice. And so we have something like this forming, and we're basically going to repeat this process. You could stop here if you want, or you could do it a couple more times. I'm going to do it a couple more times. So I'll show you a little bit more at a high level here with a little less explanation. I'm just going to duplicate. I'm going to nudge this a couple times to the right, a couple times down. I'm going to actually change the color a bit here. Then I'm going to lower it down. And I'm going to add my outset a couple times, just like that. And one more time, I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to nudge it a couple times. And then nudge it a couple times down with my arrow keys. Let's change it again to an even lighter color. We'll lower that selection to the bottom. And I'll add that outset using that keyboard shorthand. And here is what we've got. I actually don't hate those colors now that I look at them. You could definitely change them. So if you wanted to come in and change these colors here, just select each one of these layers, and under that fill and stroke panel, you could totally come in here and make further adjustments if you're not liking the exact shades and you want to play around with it. That's a lot of fun that you can have there, just playing with color. So I'm really happy with this result. Now, what we're looking at here is we've got a lot of different layers, and if you look, all of the layers that are sitting beneath the topmost layer, if we click on them and you look at the status bar that lives underneath all these colors, look underneath it, it says path of 212 nodes in root. Basically, when we added our outset, what we did is we turned it into a path automatically. But if you click on the original Just Peachy that's sitting on top, notice that underneath that color bar where the status bar is, it says text retro groovy. It's giving us the name of the font and it's calling it a text. So if we're bringing this into a cutting software, we can't bring in text as is. We have to actually change it to a path, just like the paths that are underneath. So anytime you need to change text or shape or anything like that to a path here in Inkscape, you're going to select on it and you're going to go up to path, object to path. You can also use the keyboard shorthand, but I like to go to path, object to path so you can visually see this. And once we click on that, it's no longer a text, it is now a path. You can see at the bottom there with the status, it says path of 155 nodes in root. What this basically means is we can't edit this anymore in terms of text and font. The font can't be changed. I can't click on the text tool and then double click in here and get a cursor to come back because it's no longer considered text. It's now considered a path. So that being said, make sure you don't do that final step or you don't do any of this additional design layers and elements until you are happy with your font, you are happy with what it says. All right, so next up here, first we already have something super cute, right? Make sure you're saving as you go. I always fail to say that in my videos right from the get-go, but you should always be saving your progress as you go. And that's as simple as coming up here to File and Save As. And if we do that, we can give it a name. You can save it as an Inkscape SVG when you're in the design phase. That works just fine. I'll call this one the Just Peachy SVG, and I'll click Save. All right, now let's think about our elements and our composition. So there's a few different ways we could do this. You could stack it like this if you want. We could leave it straight like this and then add our peaches somewhere else. I'm going to again just follow suit with what I already did here, just so we're headed in the same direction. So right now, because of the way I typed this out all in one line, and I did it all at once, which was super convenient for all the duplications and the outsets we were doing and the nudging, these are all stuck together. Like these two words, just and Peachy, are stuck together. So ideally, we would want to break them apart and get rid of them. There's other ways you can get around to this as well, but this is just the way that I tend to do it. So I'm going to duplicate this the same way that I did on everything else. And I'm just going to delete this section on this one, and then I'll delete the opposite on this one, and then I'll be able to work with them independently. Again, there's other ways you can do this. This is the road I'm taking for this. So I'm going to select what's called our nodes tool over here in the toolbox. And I'm going to click on each one of these layers and work my way down. And if I click on this, I'm going to click and drag over the word just for those nodes that make up that path. I'm going to just hit delete. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Click on the next layer, click and drag to delete those nodes, click and drag to delete those nodes. This is just the way my brain works when I do it. Okay, so now I've got Peachy by itself, and basically we're doing the opposite here. If you wanted to type these out separately and have them on separate lines and then have them totally separate from each other and type each word, then you could skip this step, but then you'd have to do the duplication and the nudging for two separate words as opposed to just doing it all at once. So it's a trade-off. Pick your poison. All right. So I'm going to click and drag over this, and then we could bring these two together however we want to arrange the composition. So notice right now that we have a lot of different elements going on here with this stack, and when we're moving things around, it can be very helpful to move them as a group as opposed to constantly clicking and dragging like this and kind of moving them and hoping nothing gets like shifted incorrectly. So what I would recommend at this stage is just to click and drag, and you can right click and group, or you can use the keyboard shorthand for grouping, which is Command G or Control G if you're on a PC. So I'm going to bring this up here, and I'm just going to kind of get it positioned. So you might want to have it kind of offset a little bit, maybe more this way. I feel like with this particular font, it almost needs rotated. So if we wanted to rotate this, we would select it. This is a group I'm selecting here. And I'm going to click a second time, and I'm just going to rotate it. Now, if anything is jerking around on you, see how this is like snapping and jerking? That is your snapping tool. That's what it's called, snapping. And that's located up here at the top right-hand side. So if you want to turn that off at certain periods, that's where that's located, and you can click it to turn it off. And then you're going to have much more finite control, which I find super helpful on certain things. I also feel like this almost needs to go the other direction a little bit too. So I'm going to click a second time and just tiny bit. And that looks good to my eye for the moment. Okay? Now would be the time where we could pull over any of our fruit elements from our UDesign kit that is available with our A stars, and we could bring these down. So I'm just going to replicate the ones I already have up here. So that's Command D to duplicate, Control if you're on a PC. And I just brought that down. Now this is a group of objects too, and you can tell that because again, that status bar says there's a group of 5 objects. So if I ever wanted to right click and ungroup or use the keyboard shorthand to ungroup, then you could do so, and you can make adjustments to these elements as well. For those of you who have been through our other programs and know how to do those more fancy adjustments, this is your time to shine. This is your time to do that. So we could click and drag over those and regroup them if we want and kind of move these elements around. We could scale them larger or smaller by clicking and dragging here. I'm going to want mine to be just a little bit smaller, I think. And I'm going to bring this one down too, make a copy of it, duplication, and bring it down. All right. And that's pretty close replica to our original, with the exception that we did change the colors here. And you could totally change them to anything that you fancy whatsoever. Now, one final thing I always like to teach in my videos is I would consider this a design doc. So something that I have a lot of different elements in, something I'm designing in. But if I'm ready to finalize one specific file, let's just take my original one right here, okay? I would copy this. So you can right click to copy or use the keyboard shorthand, which is Command C. And I would bring this into a fresh doc. So I don't have anything else going on in the document before I bring it into my particular cut software. So I'm just gonna go up to File and New. So I'm going to paste this in here. That's Command V or Control V if you're on a Windows, excuse me. And one thing you also want to do that I found just as a best practice for general cutting software is if you do have groups, go ahead and ungroup them at this time. So you can right click and hit ungroup. And if you have multiple groups, you might have to do this more than once. But I like to have everything ungrouped before I bring it into cut software because sometimes the cut software will scramble it if there's a lot of subgroups. So I'm going to go up to File and just do Save As Before. We'll call this just Peachy, and then I'll do Final for me 1.2 since I have other ones. And this time, instead of an Inkscape SVG, I want you to save it as a plain SVG. It just keeps out some of the more Inkscape specific things. So just a simple plain SVG and a name, put it in a location where you can find it, and click Save. And I've just dragged this over to Cricut Design Space, which is the software I use. And I'm going to click Continue at the bottom. And I would just upload this and bring it into my software here. And then we could play around with setting the final scale depending on what we decide to put this on and getting this cut out. If you found this lesson fun, intriguing, useful, please subscribe, share, and like this video. There's more details and information below for those of you who are brand new to designing and want to learn all of the basic and fundamentals first. And for all of our A-stars, I cannot wait to see your fruit-tastic designs.